All right. Let's jump into another deep dive. Today we're looking at money, but not just, the basics. We're going beyond that. We're going to be uncovering some really interesting vocabulary and idioms that you can use to spice up your financial conversations. Think, like preparing for the IELTS or just sounding really sharp anytime money comes up.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of sources here. They cover everything. We've got everyday spending habits. We've got the crazy world of investing. The big question we're going to be exploring is, how does the language we use around money actually shape our relationship with it?
It's interesting, isn't it, how these terms, we use every day, they're more than just simple definitions. They often reflect these deep-seated attitudes and cultural influences, even psychological biases that we might not even be aware of.
Okay, let's dive right in. I noticed right away our sources highlighted phrases like splashing out and treating yourself. To me, those have kind of a fun, lighthearted feel. But what do you think is going on beneath the surface there?
Splashing out, I think, gives you a sense of impulsiveness, maybe even a little bit of that thrill of instant gratification, like the kind that marketers just love to tap into. It makes you think, is it really about enjoyment? Or is it more about, giving in to some external pressure?
I see what you mean. Treating yourself feels more deliberate, more intentional, maybe even connected to self-care in a way. So do you think that maybe the same purchase could be framed in totally different ways, like depending on our mood or the situation?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that takes us to the other side of things, doesn't it? Saving. Our sources mention sticking to a budget versus cutting back, and those just seem to have totally different mindsets behind them. Do you think one of these is more common nowadays? And if so, why?
It's a really good question. Sticking to a budget feels kind of old-fashioned to me, like, something our grandparents would do. But maybe it's making a comeback, as people are becoming more, financially savvy. Cutting back, on the other hand, that suggests that you're reacting to something outside yourself, like maybe inflation or just the uncertain economy.
Exactly. And cutting back often has that feeling of being forced into it, like it's not your choice.
Right. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about income.
Yeah.
Our sources had this really stark contrast between making good money and just getting by. They paint very different pictures of financial security, don't they? Almost like making good money implies success, and then just getting by hints at a struggle.
Yeah, and that's where these societal expectations really come in. Making good money, it's loaded with connotations. Status, achievement, which can be motivating, but also incredibly stressful.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how much of our financial satisfaction comes from hitting a certain income level versus being content with what we have. It feels like the way we talk about it could actually be feeding into those societal pressures.
Absolutely. And then it's worth thinking about how those pressures can affect our spending too. If we're constantly striving to make good money, are we more likely to just splash out to keep up appearances?
Wow. That's a really interesting connection. Seems like even these simple phrases we use can reveal a lot about, what drives us deep down and how we see ourselves in society.
It's funny, we talk about splashing out, but then there's the other side of that, debt. Our sources mention maxing out, and I'm sure, most of us have been there, at least once, maybe with a credit card or a line of credit. But it's more than just hitting that limit, isn't it?
Yeah, there's almost a feeling of being trapped, isn't there? Like the debt has a weight to it or something. And speaking of weighty phrases, the source also uses declare bankruptcy, which always just makes me, cringe a little. What are your thoughts on what pushes people to that point?
Well, we can't ignore those big systemic issues, like income inequality, or even, predatory lending practices, unfortunately. But I think there's also the unexpected stuff in life. You suddenly lose your job, a medical emergency, things that can just completely derail even the most carefully planned budget.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that sometimes it's not all in our control. There are these bigger forces at play sometimes. But let's move to something a little more, hopefully optimistic. Investing. I notice our sources use some really vivid language here. Investments taking off versus crashing. Now, just hearing those phrases, they evoke such strong emotions. I wonder, do you think that reflects like a cultural fear of risk, or maybe just a fascination with the idea of getting rich quickly?
Probably a bit of both, right? Like taking off, that makes you think of effortless success. Like you're riding the wave of a booming market, easy money. But then crashing, brings in that fear, losing everything. You know those cautionary tales about like market bubbles bursting?
Oh, for sure. History's full of them. It's like this
Yeah.
pattern of booms and busts that just keeps repeating. What do you think are some of the things that contribute to all that volatility?
Oh, there's so many things going on there. It's like a whole web of influences,
Hmm.
government policies, global events, technological advancements that can just completely disrupt entire industries, and then even just investor psychology, right? Fear and greed, those can really swing the markets.
So it's kind of this mix of rational and irrational stuff all going on at the same time. Speaking of complex, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I wanted to talk about something I find really interesting. Money idioms. They're like these little nuggets of cultural wisdom passed down through generations. The source mentions money doesn't grow on trees, which I always think of as emphasizing hard work and, being responsible. But what other idiom stood out to you?
Oh, there's the classic, a penny saved is a penny earned, right? Always reminding us about frugality. But one that's always kind of intrigued me is money talks.
Yeah.
It acknowledges that power that wealth has.
Yeah.
The influence, beyond just the actual economic value.
Yeah, that is a great one. Makes me wonder if that saying's become even more relevant today. With how much money seems to be influencing politics and all these other social issues.
It's a good point. Definitely something to think about. And, while money may talk, there are these other idioms, like you can't take it with you, that kind of pull us back, remind us that there are more important things than just material wealth, right?
Absolutely. It's those kinds of contrasting ideas that make these idioms so, thought-provoking. They really capture these complex and sometimes even contradictory ways that we all think about money.
Yeah, I think you're right. And maybe by understanding these idioms and the values they represent, we can gain a better understanding of not only our own financial habits, but also like the bigger picture, the social and economic landscape we're all living in.
I totally agree. So as we head into the final part of our deep dive, I want to ask you, the listener, what money idioms resonate most with you? And do you think they reflect your own experiences? Or maybe even the values you're raised with?
Yeah, it's amazing how these little sayings can bring up such big questions about like what we really value in life.
Mm.
And I think beyond those personal reflections, what's great about this deep dive is that, you've come away with this whole new vocabulary for talking about money. And it's not just about sounding smart or anything. It's more about that confidence, feeling equipped to handle those conversations, whether it's negotiating a salary or just having a more informed chat with friends about like your financial goals.
I think that's where, really grasping the nuances of the language comes in. It lets you express yourself more clearly, avoid those misunderstandings. You can even pick up on the hidden messages behind what other people are saying. Yeah, it's like you're speaking the language of money fluently. Now, I'm curious, have any of the terms or idioms we talked about, have they kind of sparked any aha moments for you? Maybe something that's made you rethink your own spending habits or your saving strategies?
Maybe you realize you splash out more than you thought, or that it might be a good idea to start that rainy day fund to give yourself some peace of mind.
It's all about that self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Once you have that, you can start making choices that are more in line with what you truly value. So we've covered a lot today, from our daily spending habits to those sometimes confusing complexities of investing. And we've looked at all of it through the lens of language. But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Think about how you can use this new knowledge, not just for your own finances, but also to start some more meaningful conversations about money with the people around you.
Exactly. Because it doesn't have to be this taboo topic, right? By talking about it openly, using language that's both insightful and interesting, engaging, we can take the mystery out of finances. And we can help each other make more informed choices. So go out there, conquer the world of money, armed with your new vocabulary, and hopefully a newfound appreciation for just how powerful language can be.
And until next time, happy learning.